actually Roberto Lorenzo Ferguson, Robert Ferguson, and I am sharing what I believe some good information for you because I keep getting this question and I see a ton of confusion around carbohydrates and the relationship between eating carbohydrates and developing type 2 diabetes. Okay, so the question is, did you know that carbs, do not cause type 2 diabetes? Now, if you are new to this information that I'm sharing, do me a favor and like, comment, subscribe, share. But go to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so that you are notified whenever we upload new information like this. Now, before I dive in and share with you the details that carbohydrates do not cause type 2 diabetes, okay, they do not. Let's first understand what carbs are. Now, if you know the answers to this, again, I have to take a step back, create a foundation so we have clarity, and then what I'm going to share with you will make way more sense. Okay, so what are carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are all plant-based, even when they're manufactured. You have three macronutrients. You have proteins, you have carbohydrates, and you have fats. Now, there's other forms of energy that we consume, like alcohol. There's dietary fiber, and we can go on and on. But the three main macronutrients are protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Now, of those three macronutrients, two of them are essential, meaning you must eat them. Okay, you must consume them somehow in order to live. Protein is made up of amino acids, and they're essential. There's essential amino acids, which means you must consume it. So protein would fall into the essential category. We must eat protein in order to live. It's a requirement. The second essential macronutrient would be fats. We must eat fat. There are essential fats. You've probably heard of omega-3, omega-6. These are essential. If you don't consume them, eventually you will die. To most people's surprise, and I'm gonna say this twice, to most people's surprise, carbohydrates are not essential. That means you do not have to eat carbs to live. Now, whenever I share this, I share it with concern because I don't want people to think you don't want to eat carbs, because what we do know, even though you don't need carbs to live, carbohydrates like fruits and vegetables bring with them a lot of vitamins, nutrients, antioxidants, very, very helpful. So I look at carbs as increased quality of life. So even though we don't need them, right? We don't have to eat fruits and vegetables to live. They are helpful. Okay. The second part of what are carbohydrates and why we're talking about them is that carbs are not just bread, pasta, pizza. Carbs include broccoli, asparagus, collard greens, mustard greens, mushrooms, and the list goes on and on. Those are all carbs, but what the media and what most people tend to perceive as carbs are the ones that are highly processed, or the ones that we tend to like the most, which would be your breads, your pastas, and the list goes on and on. But again, broccoli, spinach, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, bell peppers, they are also carbohydrates. Okay, so now that we know that, let me share with you why I'm motivated to share this with you. Because people think carbs are the main reason why people develop type 2 diabetes. They're not. Now, if you look at this picture, if you're catching this, like where you can see, I'm sharing with you a tribe that to this day, they are still thriving and doing extremely well. And this tribe, they walk a lot. They are hunter gatherers. They are thriving. They don't have type 2 diabetes. They don't have a whole bunch of the chronic illnesses that people are living with today. And I am referring to Tucacenta. Okay. What's interesting is that they've studied these people. And when the investigators studied them, they realized that they were extremely fit. They were lean. They were muscular. They had no sign of protein deficiency. They were thriving and are continuously thriving. But here's the part that is mind-blowing to me. Of the foods that they eat, 94% of the calories they consume come from carbs. They eat carbs all day long. Now, they would love to have more protein, and whenever protein is available, they're all about it. But they love protein. It's just not available. So what they live on is primarily carbs. And no one has type 2 diabetes. Now, it's important to also note that one of their main foods are yams, but they're eating berries. I mean, they're eating fruit, they're eating vegetables, they're eating what is available for them to live, to thrive, and they're still getting an adequate amount of protein. See, if you live in the United States, if you live in Canada, if you live in Mexico, the UK, right? If you're in a country where you can go to a grocery store and foods are 100% available, right? You can get strawberries in the winter, in the fall, like it's always there. That's the world that we live in. And people think that they need to go over and beyond the call of duty to get protein. Well, that's not true. When you eat a yam or you eat broccoli, or if you eat asparagus, mushrooms, there's protein inside of those carbohydrates. And when you add all of those carbs up, even with the Tucacenta, they're getting an adequate amount of protein. They are not missing on protein because protein is in the foods they're eating. And those foods they're eating are close to nature. Now, what's interesting when you look at, tribes like this, you start to go, man, like, how are they eating carbs all day and they don't have diabetes? How are they eating carbs all day long and they're not obese? How are they eating carbs all day? Like what's going on? Well, then some people go, well, what about insulin? Well, insulin, I believe, is a major component to what sets us up to gain weight and to get sick. A lot of chronic illnesses have this relationship with hyperinsulinemia. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people are not checking that, right? When you go to the doctor, they will check your glucose and they'll check your hemoglobin A1C, and of course, all the things that touch on cholesterol and triglycerides. But they're not checking your fasting insulin. Well, I understand the importance of that. And so when they looked at Pacific Islanders, right, in the Catawba study, what was fascinating to me in this study is that they really looked close at the insulin response to the foods people were eating. The fasting glucose, not a problem, even though these people were eating carbs all day long. And they didn't have a problem with their insulin. And that's because the foods that they are eating are close to nature. So what is the take home here? Here's the take home. Okay, you ready? Whether it's looking at the Catawba study or whether it's looking at the Tucacenta or any other hunter-gatherers, they're not eating processed foods, you guys. So what is the problem with processed foods? Okay, there's a ton of studies I could share with you right now. But here's the point. We know that carbs are not the problem. The problem lies with processed foods, and inside of processed foods, what do you have? You have vegetable and seed oils. We're consuming them, and the compound effect of consuming them for 10, 20 years shows up in all of these illnesses. And if you already have those illnesses and you're still eating a lot of these foods that have these seed or vegetable oils in them, then that right there is what's blocking you from getting back to where you once were. It interferes with the efficiency of your metabolism. That's it. If a person woke up today and they say, you know what, I'm just going to quit eating processed food. And if they only ate things that were they're close to nature, like a banana, an apple, like, you will start to see things improve with your health, with your energy, all of that. Now, one of the things that I'm getting ready to start doing on a regular basis, and this is available to anyone who gets our workbook, is if you get our workbook, which I've provided you with the link, you will then have access to our community inside of dietfreelife.com, as well as a presentation where I walk you through the workbook. Now, you can get this and you can do it all on your own, or you can connect with us and get a coach. There is nothing better than having a coach. Seriously. I've been saying this since the day that I launched my first infomercial in 2009 on May 1st. And there's nothing better than that. Nothing. Because when you have a coach, you have someone that helps you with accountability. You have someone who's going to provide clarity, and they are highly trained and skilled on the diet-free life methodology. That includes the three-legged stool, right? The three-legged stool includes everything that has to touch on nutrition, then everything that has to do with activity. That's two of the legs. And then mindset, right? Motivation, staying inspired. Because a lot of people start something and they don't end it because it's just on them. But when you have a coach you're checking in with, it's not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to have the best, results or feedback to provide, but it helps you remain mindful and it puts you in a position to succeed. Now, if you can't afford a coach, or maybe you can, I don't care who you are, understand, right, the power of the diet-free life methodology. So like journals we've had in the past, I now have this workbook that's available. Get the workbook, and then inside of the workbook, you'll learn how to eat fat-burning meals. You'll learn how to combine foods. You'll be up to date when it comes to like how foods are categorized. Like is watermelon a fast carb or a slow carb? Well, right there in the workbook, you'll know that. What does a fat-burning meal look like? You'll know that. How do you make a fat-burning meal if you're a vegan? It's all in there. 5-step process, and it's done. And the list goes on and on. I could share with you all kind of different things that are available. But the point here is that if you're type 2 diabetic, or you're pre-diabetic, or you don't want to become diabetic, then you want to learn how to eat meals in a balanced way that we have proven, right? Because we're evidence-based, clinically proven to help reverse type 2 diabetes, to help prevent type 2 diabetes, to help people who have metabolic challenges that include everything from triglycerides to cholesterol concerns to high blood pressure. It's all there. It's just a matter of once you know, then you go. You know what I mean? It's really that simple. But if you don't know, then you don't know, and you'll continue to this battle. And we could give up the battle and we can win. And then let everything just manifest itself, right? Everything will start to get better and healthier. So that's why I made available the link. If you want to get the workbook, I would say get the workbook. And then from there, you'll learn how to make the most of the things in the workbook, and you will have access to that for a lifetime. Okay. So thank you. Remember, carbs do not cause a person to become type 2 diabetic. Carbs are great. Carbs are your friend. We can eat carbs. Carbs are good. You know, if you look at in Okinawa, which I've been to Okinawa, they eat carbs. I think they're over 80% of the total calories that they consume come from carbs. In America, we just are in a place where everyone's confused and people just have information that's not accurate. Instead of saying carbs, I would say processed foods, right? Instead of thinking that carrots are high in sugar, no, they're not. Think processed foods. And in the processed foods, it's not the carbs that's the problem, right? Everybody's focused on the added sugar. Oh, watch the sugar. Don't eat sugar. Sugar's bad. No. The biggest problem is going to be the seed/vegetable oils. That is the only thing that we've been consuming since 1900 that is right in association with the increased chronic illnesses, increased heart disease, increased obesity rates. The only thing that we've been eating more and more of that's in alignment with all of these problems are the seed and vegetable oils, which are primarily being consumed because of processed food. If you eat real food, it's a game changer. I mean, you can't even argue what I'm saying. Like the science, I have the science is there. You can't argue it. It's just a matter of who's aware of it and who's not. If you're not knowledgeable of it, then you're not knowledgeable of it. And you're walking around assuming and just taking on what other people believe to be true. And again, misinformation is blocking us from being successful, because I believe that you want to be successful. People want to be successful. They don't want to be sick. They don't want to experience cancer. They don't want to like die early and lose quality of life. I mean, no one wants to do that. But we live in a world, and especially in North America, of abundance. And we're trying to figure it out. And it could be that one thing that I'm sharing. And of course, learning how to eat. They don't teach you how to eat. You're indoctrinated with the U.S. dietary guidelines, but there's no like education. They don't teach you. It's not factual. We just go with what is already institutionalized. And those policies are in place for you to not have clarity. I mean, I don't want to come across as though it's a conspiracy. It's just the facts that I'm sharing. So at the end of the day, if you want to get healthier, we must upgrade our nutrition knowledge. You know, I'll end on this. Einstein is someone who I respect, and I believe he was an amazing person. I wish I could have met him. But he once said that his biggest concern was the day that technology surpasses humanity. Well, that's happened when it comes to food, the food industry, and where we are with how things are being made available to us. If you are not up to date, you've been surpassed. So then you become compromised. And you're eating things you may even think that are healthy, but yet they're creating disruption in your gut, and they're not as healthy as you think. But maybe someone told you they were healthy and you just said, But everything that I recommend, you can Google, you can research, look it up. Again, I do the research. I would love people to push back and to challenge me on certain things. I would love it. I'm open to it, because I wouldn't share information like this unless it's the best information at the moment that I share it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. And if I'm wrong or I get called on something, then I will correct it and I will let people know, hey, I shared information that's not accurate. But what I'm sharing with you is accurate. You can look it up. You can vet it. It is what it is. Carbs do not cause people to become type 2 diabetics. There's way more going on. So carbs, let's stop demonizing them. Let's stop demonizing carbs. Carrots are great. Watermelon is great. Grapes are great. Yams are great. It's the processed foods that may be your biggest challenge. If you start there, you'll make major progress. Okay? Hey, I'm Robert Ferguson again. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Please share. Share it. Just share it. There is someone, if you share it, that may benefit from what I'm sharing. People, I want you to know the truth when it comes to carbs. They do not cause type 2 diabetes. They don't. Okay? So I'm Robert Ferguson. Thank you for this time. Until the next one. If you want to learn more, go to dietfreelife.com and don't forget to go to our YouTube channel. You can just go to YouTube and type in Diet Free Life. It'll take you there. Make sure you click on subscribe, hit the bell so that whenever I share information like this, you're notified. And then you don't got to watch it at that moment, but you're notified and you can watch it at your convenience.